Alright, so the goal of this presentation is to teach you how to create basic parts in Onshape. So we'll go over the most commonly used features, as well as some ways you can use to build these things. So I'm going to teach you two methods, which is sketch, so basically revolving or extruding. So one basically replicates your sketch over and over in a circular matter, and another one just kind of extends it and pulls it out, right? So yeah, so to do this, we are going to create two parts. So the milk bottle, as you can see, will be in a revolute form, while the bottle cap, I'm going to use an extrude because it's a rather flat surface. And so for both of these, as you can see, these are round objects because, in my opinion, round objects kind of embody all the technique you need to know for Onshape. So yeah, let's get started. So right here, I've created a new document already. So I just named it test 1. So the first step of any 3D part you're going to create is to create a sketch, and we're going to create the sketch on the front plane. You can really do it on any plane you want, but just keep in mind how you're going to print it out. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make its center axes, because a revolute always needs an axis to work with. I'm going to make the walls, and then this taper, and then the neck, and then the lip. And then I'm going to go in and repeat this process so we get something like this. Alright, so first I'm going to define here to here to be 2. I'm going to define here to here to be 2. Okay, and then next step, I'm going to make these walls collinear. So draw 2 lines over here, make them all parallel. So parallel is right here, and then just define the 2 lines you want to be parallel, and then I want these 2 to be parallel as well. Okay, and then now moving on, we are going to create the walls. So the walls, we want these to be 0.4, because if you get walls that are too thick, you get not enough milk. That is not good. Over here, we're going to make this 0.75, but first, I'm going to make the wall a bit thinner. So I'm going to define here to here first. It's 0.4, as you can see I've already done. So for dimension, you want to press this hotkey D, or you can just click over here, and then like parallel, you want to just define where you want it to be. So I want this to be, first I need to make these parallel, right? So once again, parallel, make these 2 parallel, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to define this as 0.75. Okay, and then I'm going to define this top width to be 0.3. Are these not parallel? Okay, that's better. Okay, and then back to the front we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to define the length of this neck. This neck is going to be 2 centimeters tall. I'm going to make this body 5 centimeters tall. And now I'm going to create, so I'm going to make these walls parallel. And then just define here to here as 0.4. And now all that's left to do is just define the tallest part of this milk bottle, right? So this milk bottle is going to be 10.3 centimeters tall, and bam. So as you can see, I still have some blue things. So what these blue items mean is you have not fixated this part. So I can still drag it around, and that's no good. Like, look at this. Woo, woo. This is gonna cause problems when you're like making stuff, because maybe you accidentally drag something and it just gets off-centered. So a good work habit is always to center your part. So for this, I'm gonna use the midpoint, and I'm gonna fixate this part to the midpoint. And then for this, I'm gonna make here to here also 5. And then we have our milk bottle. And then don't forget, because this thing is still loosely defined, right? So I'm going to create another line that is parallel to this axle. And just draw something here. And then I'm going to... So here is one of the most common things, which is coincident. You can define one thing to be coincident with the other. And yeah. And then over here, I'm going to define this at 0.4. Move that. Okay. Then define here to here. 10.3. What the heck? Oh my bad. It's wrong. This has to be 5.3. This has to be 5. Okay, there we go. And now a good test is always just to drag this around and see what happens. And so as you can see, nothing really that will deform our design happens. So we should be fine. All that's left to do is basically just make this the midpoint, right? So once again, you do this midpoint. Should fixate everything. So now you see everything has turned black. If I try to drag this around, nothing will happen, and that's good because we don't want a part floating around in mid-space while we're trying to design it, right? So that's done. So now we're gonna turn this 2D part into 3D. So I'll first show you what each function does, right? So here's your extrude, which just kind of just extrudes these sketches you run, and you can see this pulls the sketch up linearly, right? So this just goes left or right, and it just extends this part. And no milk bottle is built like this, because who wants a square milk bottle? So what we're gonna do instead of an extrude is we're gonna do a revolve. So revolve, this thing has to go around an axis. So what's the axis? Well, we made the axis when we first built the sketch. It's this center line. So after this, bam, you've got yourself a milk bottle, right? So now, now here's something for both artistic effect and also for like usability, right? So here are two main features in this program, which are fillet. So I'm gonna fillet these edges because you don't want them to cut your lip. And I'm going to fillet them for 0.15 centimeters because that'll make it a full round. And I'm going to do the same for the inside because it looks cooler. Okay, and then moving on, you can see all these edges are really rough and not very beautiful, if I do say so myself. So after this is done, I'm going to go fillet these edges, right? So once again, you take your fillet here and here, and we're going to make it 3.5 centimeters. So it has a nice gentle curve. Also, don't forget the bottom edge, because that needs to look beautiful too. Oops. Alright, my bad. Alright, my bad. My very bad. Right, so I kind of forgot to, make the bottom of the milk bottle. So, right here, this is not correct. So, I'm gonna just define this to be here to here, and then here to here, right? So, once again, this is 0.4, or it should be, so just make this parallel to this. We should be good, and then define this as 0.4. There we go. That's better. And then for revolve, every time you edit a sketch, it's gonna create some new faces. So I could not find that face, which was bad. But so here is our milk bottle, right? So yeah, so we filleted these, but there's also this bottom edge you want to fillet. So make it round. That's a little too big, so I'm gonna do it on the next pass. So after filleting those two, we still got this weird edge thing right here, right? So I'm gonna show you this other option. So here is full round. So it just full rounds this face off. Oh, my bad. So I'm gonna just round this and this the other way. So make this 0.5 because it's a very small edge. So 0.1. And bam, you got this little nice curve going on. So this looks a lot more like a milk bottle than what we originally started with. So next up, you're gonna go over here and you're gonna right click. So here's something really cool is they have these material libraries with all these things already set up. So if you know what kind of material you're gonna use, it's really good because it'll allow you to stress test, and it's easier to do parts over here and make them the materials you need rather than elsewhere, because it's going to be a pain to do that on the simulation software. So we can just make this class. And then, of course, when you also got to make it look like glass, right? So over here is the transparency mixer. You can make it as transparent or not transparent as possible. I'm just going to give it a slight tint of blue because I like it. And there you go, you finished your milk bottle. So Onshape itself has a few rendering capabilities, but really you're going to want to render with Fusion because it's so much better. But like you can make it shaded without edges, and yeah. So moving on, you're going to create your second part of the day, which is your milk bottle right here. So if you look at this milk bottle, you know you're going to want to build it like an Extrude because this is easier to be lifted. So I'll show you how. So over here, we're going to first go over here and create a new part studio. Oh, I already did that over here, but okay. Delete. So once again, I'm going to build this from the top because, oh my god. Wrong. That's not good. Okay, anyways, I'm going to create a tab over here. So create a part studio. And so you know this milk bottle's got to fit snugly on your bottle cap, right? So here we can see over here. We know the space between the two grooves should be 0.75. And we can make it an arbitrary width for each groove. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch from the top, select the sketch plane, and you know over here you've got your radius to be 2, so you know you can sketch an inner circle of diameter 2 or diameter 4, and then you can sketch one circle over here, and this will be 0.75 away. Bam. Alright, so this is gonna fit snugly over, and so we're gonna create the little walls for these tabs. So since it's a little plastic tab, it doesn't have to be that wide, because if it's very wide, you're gonna have trouble peeling it off, because it'll be more rigid. So I'm just gonna make it like 0.15 centimeters, and I'm gonna make this little thing 0.15 centimeters as well. Or actually, I'm going to make this 0.3 because it's the thicker outer wall. Bam, you got this. Okay. Now we're going to use the extrude feature. First thing we're going to want to extrude is all 3 of these. And we're going to want to extrude this thing about 0.2 centimeters, or 0.3 actually. This is going to be how we're going to build everything off of. So once you finish this, you can use this sketch over and over again, because, well, you got your outer wall you need to build and your inner wall you need to build. So how are we going to do that? Well, you first show the sketch over here, and then once again you just go over here and you just click extrude, and you click extrude. I don't want it to be this tall, so I'm just going to make it 0.5 centimeters. This looks about right. I'm going to make it actually 0.75. So that looks a bit more right. Okay, and then before you click OK, just check everything to make sure it's actually okay. And bam, you have created the base of your milk bottle cap. So it's going to be difficult to hold this, right? So we're going to have to create something that is a tab. So you flip to the other side. Now you don't need the sketch anymore, so you can dispose of the sketch. Then you're going to come over here, you're going to click sketch, and over here select your plane, which is you're going to sketch on top of this bottle cap now. So what are we going to do next? We're going to first, I want to use this little circle here as one of my references. So in order to get that in the sketch, we're going to use this function called project, and as you can see, this thing now has a little thing. So if I hide this part, you can see this sketch still exists with this little part on it. So if I unhide the part and keep working, I'm gonna just create the tab with a little circle rather than an arc. So you know, this is center defined, so all I really have to do is just define this radius. I'm gonna just make it 3 and define the length. I'm gonna make it 1.25, and that looks about right, so we're fine. Once again, you want to extrude. So keep in mind, when you're making a new extrude, sometimes it sets you to this new function. So if I clicked OK over here, this thing is not attached to the blue thing. You can see because it's also a different color. So when I do this in an assembly, this thing's just going to fall apart, and that's no good. So first of all, this is the wrong direction. Second of all, that happens. So I'm going to flip it, give it a 0.25 centimeter thing. And then this is still a new part, which is bad. So we're going to turn to add. When you have an add, you need a merge scope. So we're going to merge this with our original part 1, and bam, it's attached. Alright, so this is a very chunky bottle cap, and I don't like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fillet it, and it's going to look a little more pretty. So once again, I'm going to full round this. Just make it 0.125. There we go. Okay, and then moving on, I'm going to do the inner lip. So the inner lip, all you really need to do, you need to keep this flat and keep this as filleted as possible so it kind of slits into place. So I'm just going to make that 0.1. I'm also going to do the same for the outside, and bam, you've got your milk cap. And yeah, this is your whole project. And so now you know how to use this extrude function. You practically understand all of the search, all of these bars. So you know how to use the circle tool and the here's the rectangle tool. Here's the line tool that we used a lot. Here's the arc tool. These are all really useful. So I'll quickly go over what they do. This, for example, creates a whatchamacallit, it creates an inscribed polygon. So it's a regular polygon, which is good. So if I cancel the sketch and go back, I'm going to quickly explain what all of these do. Actually, I'm going to make a new sketch. So here are the most common things you're going to use. Corner rectangle. So if you click this drop down menu, you can see all of these circles. They have 3-point ellipse and whatever. So most of these shapes have both a center defined and an edge defined. So like for these polygons, if you want to define by edges, just use line. But if you want to define by center, you can use inscribe or circumscribe. The difference being whether one's outside the circle and one's inside the circle. Spline is self-explanatory. It's just creating these arcs, basically. And then, as you can see, the arc, it has 3-point, tangent, and center point, as well as conic. So after you draw these arcs, you can select the radius and call it a day. So that should be it for everything you need to know to create your own basic part in Onshape. There's more things like rib, shell, and hole, and so as well as gear, but you probably only use these right now. So how I would go about learning these is like Onshape has this very nice library, so you can just search up, like, let's say I want to learn shell, right? So I'll just search up shell Onshape. And you can see over here it has its little help button, and it can teach you all about it. So see, it has a video example that'll teach you how to shell, and just do these and do this a couple of times. There's steps, there's tips. So yeah, so if you want to learn any of these new parts, you really should just search it up and look at the library. Since you know how to make this basic outline of this part, you should be able to grasp the concept of the CAD, which is basically just you go from 2D to 3D to fine-tuning. So from 2D you create that basic shape, from 3D you turn that basic shape into a 3D basic shape, and using tools such as fillet, you can get it to work better functionality wise. Right, so I can show you some of the past projects I've done for robotics. Like, for example, we have our little arm, right, or our little base. So, let's see. Let's just go into this. So as you can see from here, first of all, when I'm building, I like to label my parts, so when I come back, I have a general idea of what I'm doing. You can see there are some sketches I have not hidden, but everything, this was just built with everything I just taught you, with like extrude, chamfers, and whatnot. You can see like these extrudes, there are chamfers everywhere, and usually when you use these chamfers, it's for like improving the structural stability of your part. Like over here we've got these little fillets just to increase the contact area with the ground and just make that structure way more stable. You can see we have shaded on, and then yeah, so that's all you need to know to create these parts in Onshape, and this will set you pretty good until you need to create something fancier, and even then you're not going to be using most of these features. Like this is completely for sheet metal, you're not going to use this a lot. Yeah, these are for screws and whatever, for springs, and so for these past years I've not been using these functions a lot, if at all. Like most I've been using is just loft and thicken or sweep, and that's about it. So I think that's all you need to know right now. Bye bye.